Just because it's an incredibly hard drone shot doesn't mean it's an incredibly good drone shot. There's a reason why in the NBA you don't shoot behind your back shots just because it's harder. No, you shoot a three-pointer.
Bad drone shooting is always trying to do too much. That being said, can you shoot something that is meaningful to the film that actually has a storytelling purpose? And what I mean by that is like, why is this included?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this important to the film or the couple?
Why you gonna try to get mad? Everybody wanna keep up. Don't you know I move too fast? I'ma zip right past. Drip all on my swag.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. My name is Jared and we're back for another episode. I'm here today with my co-partner in crime, Jason McCutcheon. How's it going, man?
It's going good. I'm using our brand new Wedding Film School mugs.
Yeah, it's very on-brand / off-brand.
Totally off-brand orange.
Orange color. But you know, that's what happens when you go with a new printer, right? Someone you haven't used before.
You never know. And, but I still think it's a cool design.
I think these ones will actually be the ones that are like worth a lot of money in the future because it was like a printing mistake.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever watch that Netflix show on like all the old toys, like the old G.I. Joe and Star Wars
I was
toys?
a collector, my friend. I know how this goes.
It's like the ones that have the off print. Those are the ones that are worth the most.
This is the one where his name is spelled Babe Ruth, but with an O.
Yeah,
Babe
right,
Roth.
Right. So actually, we're probably going to be doing some giveaways once we start up the Wedding Film School live show on YouTube on a weekly basis. We have a lot of swag.
Yeah, I'll give you a free tip, not related to the episode. Don't build a studio.
Yes. Don't ever construct it yourself because it will never come to fruition. So we've been filming in our
half constructed
future podcast. This is where we're going to be doing podcasts. So at least we're in the
it
same
will
room.
look not terrible.
Yeah. We just have to shift things around on a weekly basis when contractors are in here working on our ceiling. You can't see this if you're watching this on YouTube. Clearly can't see it if you're listening to it on the podcast.
Close though.
We're getting there though. We are almost there. It sounds okay. It will sound better when it's actually soundproofed in here. But we're just waiting for some logistics before we can wrap the space up and kind of make this a regular thing.
Yeah, it's exciting. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we are talking about drone.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and why we don't use drone for a majority of our wedding films.
Yes, we don't do it, and it's probably not for the reason that you think.
Yeah, we're just making that the title so that it's catchy and you listen. So.
Yeah, if you took the bait and clicked,
you're a sucker. I'm sorry.
You're an idiot.
Here you are, but you're here. You're gonna listen. So
you need to consider your life.
Let's dive right into drone. So like the reason why I kind of wanted to bring this up is because we're fresh off coming back from WPI Las Vegas. You just watched abhorrent amount of wedding films.
I feel like I always watch them.
That's true.
Between our own films that we edit and then the ones on Wedding Film School, and I don't know, 400 wedding films a year at least.
Yeah. I mean, do you know of anyone who watches more wedding films than you?
I sincerely doubt anyone.
I don't know. Yeah.
I might watch more wedding films than anyone in the world.
Right.
Maybe.
I think like full wedding films.
It would
think
be
it's
hard,
true.
especially critically.
Yeah.
Like maybe a bride getting married, watching like maybe they're just super excited.
Right. I don't think they watch 400 wedding films a year though. Like
No,
you're up there. Between being a judge at WPPI and then also
I don't just get to watch them. I have to actually provide feedback
for all of them. Yeah. Besides being a judge at WPPI and then also running the Wedding Film School show on a weekly basis, you watch a lot of films.
I watch films that we don't even put on the show.
So some films have drone, some do not. So I think I just want to talk about like what is the state of like drone? Is drone becoming the slider
Drone is
of
the
the
new
wedding
slider.
industry?
So what do we mean by that? Because a lot of people, maybe if you're getting into the game now and it's all about gimbals, right? Maybe you don't remember sliders.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that was a big thing. That was like when I think sliders were like the first thing that was like, and now cinematic.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
and no slow-mo either. You'd be like faking slow-mo with a slider.
Right. But like essentially like what is you could even say getting into like is drone the new gimbal? Because I think gimbal is almost over.
Is it played out?
Yep.
Is it old hat? Like what, spoiler, we don't think it is played out, but we can't understand the perspective.
It can be played out.
Yes.
I think if you're overusing it. So just in general, like what are your thoughts nowadays? How are people, are people using drone too much? Like, what are your opinions on that?
So I think the state of drone, we'll say.
Yeah.
I think we're having an interesting point because, like, first and foremost, like, for instance, like the new Mavic 3. Mavic 3 Pro?
Yeah, no. I think it's just 3. Yeah.
Whatever. That's kind of like the maybe it's not the best drone in the market, but I think that's the best one you probably will see consistently at weddings. Not many people. Every once in a while you see a person flexing about their Inspire. But in general, and so like that comes out, and if you're paying attention, you're like, well, it's good, it's better, but how much is it really way better? Like the technology is like hitting a point where we're getting very incremental changes. At the beginning, it was like from the original Phantom to the Mavic 2 Pro, you're talking light years. I remember that original Phantom, like we would put the footage in and I would be like, well, it's drone footage and that's cool, but it kind of looks like crap.
Kind of has that like
it's all
sharp
crispy.
quality. Yeah.
Like,
which is like a bad sharpness where it's like over sharpened.
Digital.
Yeah.
And like you could tell like the color was bad, and now it's like beautiful looking, and
no dynamic range. Now dynamic range is like it's getting there. Looking nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking image. Shooting log, it can work within your workflow, and they're affordable. You don't need a Mavic 3. You can shoot incredible footage with a 3-year-old drone. So I think the lift you used to see from someone just putting drone in their film, which was like, whoa, wow, did they rent a helicopter? Like, like now you're walking in and like you're shooting drone. Have you ever had this experience? You're shooting drone at a wedding, and then somebody walks up to you, like an uncle or some enthusiast guy at the wedding. He's like, yeah, oh, wow, cool, that's Mavic. Yeah, I just got one of those. Took it on vacation.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Everybody's shooting this stuff. And so it's outside of the realm of like, it's so cinematic. It's just drones are part of everyday life in, most places, at least in the States. And so I think that the wow factor is decreased.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And it's kind of at the point, I think we're at a point now where everyone had to get the newest drone. Like we went from like, the Phantom 4 to the Mavic 2 Pro to like the Air S, I think we have now. So,
we have not gotten the Mavic 3.
Haven't got the Mavic 3. But that's the question is like now, like you're saying, like now they're much more incremental. They're much more like an iPhone. Like year to year, do you really need to get a new iPhone every year? Probably not. Most people, I just got my new iPhone. The last one I bought was like 2017, and that's a huge jump.
I do want the Mavic 3, by the way.
So do we as professionals have to buy each new model?
No,
nowadays?
and like, what is the impact when you put in your film?
Right.
Like with your clients, with other filmmakers, just in general. So I think that's the first thing. Is like, it's not a novelty anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
is it a fundamental then? Is the question.
I don't know about that, but I know that like, you're not going to have much of a competitive advantage just because you have drone anymore.
Right.
And so maybe there'd be a disadvantage if I can't imagine why someone wouldn't be able to provide drones. So I don't know that if somebody was like, oh, well, this guy's doing drone, can you, even if you've never have, you could be like, yes. Yeah. And then you just go buy the drone.
Right.
And it's not that hard.
Yes.
To shoot drone. And so I wouldn't say it's a necessity.
Yep.
But, it is no longer, I think, a special magic thing that would get you.
I think when you get to a certain price point, it might be a fundamental.
Yeah, probably an expectation.
Of like, it's an expectation once you reach a certain, like, if you're doing a boutique wedding film, you're probably just including drone. You're just like, hey, you're going to buy us, you're going to get the best we have to offer kind of thing. Like, I can't imagine 31 films not bringing a drone to their wedding if they're like, this film requires it, because they're super.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That I think it is true. Is like, okay, it's not going to just by itself shooting any drone shot blow people away, but I think now it's to the point where it's like nobody would be like, oh my gosh, did you see how long that lens zoomed?
Yeah.
Oh wow, so you have a zoom lens? That's incredible. Like, but if you never had shots that were close up, you wouldn't be able to tell the story right.
Right.
Like you wouldn't be able to tell the story correctly. So I think instead of being a wow factor just for being in the film, it's a fundamental storytelling skill most of us have. And so like if you know, we're talking about we're shooting in Aspen this year and we have to shoot drone. And because that's the epicness of the mountain. How else am I supposed to show a mountaintop?
Right.
Without a drone.
Yep.
And that film requires a mountaintop. And
Yeah.
so then we have to logistically go, where can we legally fly it in Aspen and all those things? It's like, so I do think while it's not blowing people away, it is a fundamental storytelling like mechanic that a wedding filmmaker probably needs to have. And
Yeah.
needs to know when to use.
I think the good thing about drone, and maybe this is a little bit obvious, and I don't want to patronize people, but like I just shot a wedding on Sunday behind the scenes. That's going to be coming out shortly. Pay attention to that, peoples. But the venue itself was kind of hard to film, like the exterior. I always like to have exterior shots of the venue to just show like, hey, this is where they're getting ready. This is where the wedding's going to happen. Sometimes just filming a wide shot of the venue, it doesn't look good. It's just hard to film. Like maybe there's this ugly parking lot and you can't really show the scope of the venue. A drone provides that, right? And I think that's kind of where a drone can definitely help out.
It's a kind of a cheat code, right? Because it's basically like a gimbal / slider / camera that can float in the air that can give you I do think it still is cinematic, like when shot well. And so, I think the other thing about drone in 2022 is a lot of people, it's become so ubiquitous that a lot of people are kind of crapping on it or skewing the usage. I always see someone who's like, I don't do this anymore because blah. And ultimately it really means they're just insecure, trying to be original. Who knows? Like, I don't care about that stuff, but I do see it. I mean, we've people who just won't use drone because other people do. And so, maybe as much as I'm saying there's not a wow factor and it's not, maybe it might become a wow factor again as people kind of get over it and stop using it. Who knows? True. I still like a slider.
Sure.
We don't use it all the time, but it doesn't mean I would never use a slider if I thought it was the right thing to use.
Totally. Yeah. So let's talk about actually shooting drone. Moving on to like the actual like how to shoot maybe some good drone.
We'll talk about that.
So what in general kind of makes good drone shots compared to poor drone shots? You want to talk about bad shooting first?
Watching a film?
Yeah.
I think the first thing I look at with drone shots is like, basic like camera settings. I think that still matters. And I see a lot of those exposure mistakes because people are paranoid and freaking out. Like it's in the air and they're worried about battery or they don't know. I mean, let's be honest, those menus kind of suck. So they I think that's the first thing with bad drone is like you still got to expose the image correctly.
That's true. And not really having a game plan. I've seen that with some drone people that we've brought on to film. It's like, did you even have a thought about like what you were trying to do? Like, and a lot of times that has to do with like, what are your settings? What are your color profiles? What are you shooting at 30p? Are you shooting 60p, 24p? Like what's your frame rate?
Yeah, poor, unintentional, kind of that basics.
Be organized. Understand what you're trying to do with your drone footage even before you send it up to fly. Right. I see some mistakes there. 60p can look really weird with drone unless you're really slowing it down.
Well, and also you don't need it.
Right.
And not to say that I like to shoot 30p. Yeah. Personally, just so you can get a little extra, a little slow down. Yep. But I don't really see the benefit.
Yeah, that's what we do, and we shoot generally a pretty flat profile on our drones so that we can add color and provide ourselves a little bit of flexibility.
I think just poor, bad looking footage is a thing I still see. The other thing I see is unflattering shots of. And maybe a better way to say it is poor storytelling. Like one of the things I always ask a person in wedding film school live critiques is, what is that? It seems like a basic question, but they're like, oh, this is And what I mean by that is like, why is this included?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this important to the film or the couple? And, you know, sometimes the person just like, well, I had a drone. So I shot a drone shot. And it's like, I don't want to act like that's a terrible transgression. Like, I'm sure the couple just thought it was cool to have any drone. That being said, can you shoot something that is meaningful to the film that actually has a storytelling purpose?
Mm-hmm.
I see that a lot where I'm like, was that a really important building to them? No.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one specific shot. This guy did this shot. He was just shooting in it was a basic wedding. Nothing fancy. It was unfancy. It was like, and there was a shot of like a retention pond that had like a fountain in it, shooting water in the air. And I was like, what is that location? He's like, oh, I just drove by and I thought it looked cool.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think that looks cool. I think it looks dumb. But it's not where they're getting married. It's not related whatsoever to the film or the story. The couple's not going to look at that and go, oh my God, yeah. Like,
right.
It doesn't look nice. It's just pointless.
It's the equivalent of shooting, you know, a sailboat on the shelf once you go inside the house and you're filming
worse.
The getting ready.
At least that's in their house.
Right. It's like, why are you feeling like that doesn't have any value to the end of your film?
It's not giving you a sense of place.
Right.
If it is giving you a sense of place, it's telling you this is not a nice place. Mm-hmm. This is a common place, a normal place. There's nothing wrong with a retention pond that has if I lived near that retention pond, I would rather it have a fountain than not.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not relevant to the story of the day. Like, they went to this beautiful location that they picked on purpose. It's not even the venue. Mm-hmm. It's nothing. It's just a nothing. And I see that a lot. Is like, and then the other thing I think is just like not shooting creatively, like the same 3/4 angle flyover. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that shot.
Right.
But I'm oftentimes thinking like, well, could we have done something a little more interesting? Mm-hmm. You know, with that, like, just thinking about it like you would think about any camera in any subject, which is like, what is the best way to present this subject in the most flattering way?
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are like you mentioned before, like they're just flying the drone over the venue, and I'm like, I can see all the dumpsters.
Yeah.
That's not nice looking. It's not flattering to the venue. Like, do you think the venue is going to be like, let's feature this film from this filmmaker who shot at our venue, who made our venue look like trash? Mm-hmm. They're not going to want that.
Right. Yeah, I think to your point about that specifically, I hate parking lots. So it's like, it's really hard to sometimes not film parking lots when you're shooting a venue, because it's literally like a clubhouse with a parking lot and maybe like in a beautiful setting. So like, how are you hiding dumb cars? Like, I hate cars. Like, if anyone shoots cars in our films in general, I'm like, what are you doing?
Unless the cars are you're shooting New York City.
Right.
Yeah, people like.
I don't want to see someone's Ford Focus.
You don't want to see a pointless car that has no purpose, like just common things.
Yeah, that takes people out of the films.
Yeah.
I have a lot of I just kind of got our team figured out for the year, and we're bringing on some people who are drone operators for the year. And a lot of them, I'll talk to them. I'll tell them what we do. Yeah, we're doing, wedding films. This is what we like. And always, without fail, do you know we have FPV drone? I can FPV. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in your FPV drone. Because why? Because it doesn't tell a good story. Why would I ever want an FPV drone?
If we're in Monument Valley, I would say, yeah.
Maybe.
Definitely be sick. I want to watch that.
Maybe. But in a lot of cases, it's about pacing, right? Like the pacing of the wedding film. Like, why do I want an FPV drone of someone's country club? Like,
no, I don't want that.
Like spinning through,
I
spiraling through
would
trees
really
or
not
something.
Want that. Like, okay, so let's talk about that.
Or even like a beach. Like, what are the cool things that make a FPV drone
FPV
awesome?
drone, basically, if you don't know what that is, it's first-person view drone. And the drone and the camera is usually mounted on the front of the drone instead of the bottom. So it gives you a perspective of like being in the front of the drone. So it's more of like a forward-looking perspective typically. So people who are really good at it are those crazy trick drivers. They're typically faster and they're like flying all around crazy trees and rocks. And why is that not the right shot for most weddings.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think it comes down to pacing. Like most wedding films, unless they're like you're at this insane part of the wedding film, like it doesn't match. Doesn't feel creatively. It doesn't feel like the right shot for most cases. Like most of the times, you're trying to convey meaning in your shots. I would say all the time you're trying to convey meaning in your shots. And if I'm doing this, if I'm trying to do this FPV, like whose perspective am I really trying to show off? Like I'm not probably shooting the bride and groom. I'm trying to shoot this venue, and a venue will never look good with
most
an FPV
places
drone.
like don't a country club or whatever, like the high kinetic, high velocity style flying that you're doing with an FPV drone probably isn't going to match the edit, and it's not going to match the mood. I can imagine a wedding film where actually FPV drone flying would elevate it to another level.
Potentially.
And that's the interesting thing about this is like it's not just good enough anymore to get in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Now we actually have to be filmmakers again.
Right.
So it's like,
so
when is the right time to do something with your drone? It matters.
Yeah, and maybe we have a similar take, but also a different take on it. Because like for me, I prefer my drone shooters to like get the fundamentals and then work on some creative things. Because like for me, I don't want my drone shot to take the audience out of the story that I'm trying to tell. So if I'm just like do a 1 second shot of a 3/4 shot, I think that's perfectly fine because it's not distracting my couple. It's showing off, like it's accomplishing a goal. So I don't really mind a lot of boring drone coverage.
I don't either.
Just as an essential.
It depends on the film.
And then, play around with trying to get something creative, look directly down, get this really kind of flat shot. Maybe people are moving down there, or maybe you have, like I just said, don't shoot cars, but maybe you have this Rolls Royce car that's pulling up and you get it, you're kind of following it, just flat perspective. Like we just did in Red Rocks of our car. Like that was a cool shot. Like that was a very stylish, thought out thing.
Well,
but it added to the film because like you said, storytelling. So that's what I would say. Bad drone shooting. A lot of times, fundamentals, like if you don't have no good composition, that's one thing.
People are so lazy with their composition with drones. Like,
really lazy.
Literally.
And so that's why you need someone who is a cinematographer. When they're filming drone, whether it's you or you're hiring someone else. Like we thought originally when we first got our Phantom, we were like, oh, this guy knows how to play video games well, and it has like understanding of screens and controllers, right?
Well, and on some level there's a little truth to it, but they're never going to be incredible.
But when they're trying to get the actual shot, like they're good at the tech, but then when you're trying to get the actual shot, it's like they don't have the vision for it. So just creating your shots which have like a point A and then a point B. Like I'm going to start here, I'm going to end here. This is my move, right? Like that's how cinematographers think.
Yeah.
So people that don't have any kind of thought for the follow through of your shot, and then also just like the terrible composition. Like this is my composition to start the shot. This is where I'm hoping to end. Like you're making creating some parallel lines, making your shots kind of balanced. I hate when my perspective is off just a little bit. Like if I'm doing a push in to a building and it's off just a little bit, I'm tweaked by that. It's hard.
This kind of gives me into the last thing I would bring up with bad drone shooting.
Sure. Bad
drone shooting is always trying to do too much, too.
Sure.
I remember watching a guy's drone footage the other day. I don't even remember whose film it was, where it was, but he was trying to fly through a covered bridge.
Yeah.
First of all, way too long of a shot. Second of all, super crappily shot.
Yeah.
And third of all, like, it's really hard to fly a drone straight.
Yeah.
You realize that when you have things on your left and right.
Yeah.
And it was like he kept having to like correct the drone.
Yes.
Like my tip to you is if you really want to fly through a covered bridge or any of that crap, do it like 3 times. Practice it. Don't just
I think the moral of this story is just because it's an incredibly hard drone shot doesn't mean it's an incredibly good drone shot. It's a trick shot.
Worth it.
Yeah, it's like there's a reason why in the NBA you don't shoot behind your back shots just because it's harder. It's like, no, you shoot a 3-pointer. Like you try to hit,
or like just walk through the covered bridge with your gimbal.
Right.
Why it doesn't, if it doesn't need to be aerial,
Yeah.
why are you using a drone to do it?
Yeah.
You know? So let's talk about good drone shooting
Okay.
really quick.
Yeah, I think
Even though we kind of have.
all of the opposite things of the things we just said. Good composition, having a game plan with your settings, having a game plan with your shots. I think picking times of day.
Yes.
That would be ideal for drone shooting. Generally, I like our drone shooters to be on site 2 hours before sunset, and filming just the whole golden hour and the hour before golden hour. Like usually, if they're getting there 2 hours, that gives them like a half
My
an
actual
hour.
favorite drone footage is sunrise.
Yeah, sure.
The early blue hour.
Yep.
Like, it's beautiful. It's not always practical.
It's usually softer in the morning, especially like early morning. So that can be really
and there are
nice.
nobody out there, which I like.
Yep.
So
It's not always the case, but you do tend to get, like, if it's at a weird time of the year, like that nice fog in the morning. People that really know their stuff are shooting in the morning. So that's probably the biggest hack. But if you're, looking to film like a certain part of the day, like cocktail hour, like that's the only real part of the day that I'll be like, hey, drone shooter, try to get this specific time of day with people in the shot. Like generally, I always tell them, we are not going to film the bride and groom. They're never going to be in our drone shots. I don't want to plan that logistically. I don't.
by the way, we don't think that's bad. We just don't do it very much.
I don't really like it.
I don't mind it, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to get something, and if you do this, is fine. Do your thing, I would say. Like, I imagine someone like, hey, I'm going to follow you guys. You're driving in this great old Corvette or something, like, and the bride's sitting on the, on the top of it with her veil flaring and she's holding it. Like, great. If you want to be Spielberg with your drone
Or
shots,
like someone's
go for
walking
it.
on the crest of a hill in Iceland, and like,
Right.
there's a time and a place where like it's kind of actually the right shot.
Yeah. Elopement stuff, cool. Like,
But if they're just
actually,
standing at a stinking
I do
golf
think,
course.
I do think elopement stuff can be kind of cool. And where it's just maybe the bride and groom and you're shooting a portrait session, potentially, when you have the time. It's just usually I don't want to sacrifice my time
yes,
getting another shot for that shot.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think another good drone thing that I see, like the best people, and we kind of mentioned it, but the best people, not only are they using good composition and all that, but they're actually trying to, they're focusing on giving you different perspective on things. And so like, whether it be like beautiful lay flats, like I love that. I love a good lay flat with the drone. Whether it be like emphasizing the lines.
Yeah, like a
of a
good
garden.
Italian garden. Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
or like the way you can work with them. People, it's a played out shot, but
Yeah.
it always looks good. The coastline,
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do there. And I think the other thing I love with good drone footage is if you can integrate foreground.
Mm-hmm.
If you can fly past a tree and not just over a tree,
Right.
like
right.
that really, really helps. It's like, whoa, I remember doing the redwood forest and we're flying
Yeah.
through the trees.
Yeah.
And
reveal the Golden Gate Bridge, like reveal shots. Great.
Reveals, like using actually cinematic techniques in your drone footage where you're using reveals and you're using all kinds of perspective shifts to actually make it a little
Intriguing.
abstract
Yeah.
instead of just like, and then they went to the golf course.
Yeah.
And then they went to the beach.
Yeah. That's the biggest kind of hack, is like creating a sense of intrigue. And that's just good cinematography in general. Like, you thought this, now I'm going to reveal this. Like this, it's like a surprise thing. People, are going to hone in on like, okay, what's next? Like, I didn't expect that. Like, that's how you captivate your audience. That's how you make people who are just like normal passerbys, buyers, watch a wedding film.
Why don't we talk about sales?
Sure.
Even though we kind of skipped, but I think most people connect with the shooting more. So
Yeah.
So why don't we include it in every single one of our films?
Yeah, so here we are. We're saying like we don't include it in most of our packages, but then we're talking about how much we love good drone footage. But I think what we do, I would say, and maybe I'll do this. I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
Should people be selling drone footage as a separate a la carte item, or should they include it as a part of their packages?
I think first I'll say you should get that money. So get that bag wherever you can. And so that's my basic philosophy about a business. That being said, I don't want to be short-sighted. Like if you're early in your career, you might decide that having drone footage in your films is a competitive advantage. You don't want to be seen as a person who doesn't have drone footage. So if you need it, and like if I was shooting a beautiful location and the couple wouldn't pay for drone footage, I probably would just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, look, I gave you surprise and wow the couple, which is great. And then you have something better for your portfolio. So all that being said, I think if you're wondering, can I sell it as a la carte or an add-on, and will people pay for it, or do I have to include it? I think the answer is unequivocally you should be making people pay for it for a lot of reasons, mostly because they will. Secondly, because it is increased liability in a major way. And it adds a lot of complexity to the wedding day, and it also adds time to the edit. I mean, anytime you're adding time to the thing that you do and adding risk, you should feel fine charging for it.
Right.
But also, people will pay for it, right?
Right. We've definitely proven that people are willing to pay extra for
This
it.
is why we don't. It's a trick way for us saying, why don't we include it in all our films? Because we've proven and we know that people will pay for it.
Yeah. And I've seen the commentary, people will say like, well, I won't charge people to use a better camera. And, oh, well, what happens if they order drone coverage and then it rains that day? Then I have to refund money. So, there's some understandable, I guess, qualms against selling drone
You gotta
footage.
work through that stuff. But in general, I don't think that's insurmountable.
But the things that I would say there is, yes, that's what we do. If it's rainy, that money is earmarked. I just return that money to people if we can't fly. I actually give people some options, which I'll go through, kind of what those rain options are. I agree with you. I think it is something that if money's on the table, we should always be trying to capitalize. And I'll tell you, I just went through it the other day. We made $30,000 last year just selling drone coverage. That's not profit. That's just,
there's cost involved.
Yeah. That's just revenue. So there's costs involved. What we do is, and this kind of goes into my next question. We hire separate drone people that are on our team, that are contractors that can kind of be on, like, I always call it like Drone Island. They're, and there's a bunch of reasons why, that is the case. But why do you think someone, should or shouldn't shoot drone themselves, or why they should hire someone else to, film drone for them?
I think people. Let me hold on.
Sure.
That beeping sound. What is that? So I think the question is, I don't want to say I think. So the question is, should you shoot drone on your own? Is it okay to outsource? Should you make hire a contractor your default plan? I think the answer is kind of it depends. But I think if you've never considered getting partners who are willing to shoot drone for you and rolling that cost in so you can sell it, but also focus, I would say the biggest reason why you would want third party or someone on your team who does it and not the main cinematographer would be because wedding days are crazy. And oftentimes the way our drone coverage is happening is typically like we have another person showing up while we're still shooting the wedding.
Right.
So we're not leaving the wedding to go get the drone footage most of the time. There are plenty of times where I have been by myself and I come early, I shoot the drone footage. Like, it's not always that way. But most of the time, I'm not shooting drone. I have another person there if I'm shooting and I'm dealing with the getting ready stuff.
Right.
Or whatever it is whenever the drone's happening. And so I just feel like you should consider it because, A, you should have someone on your team who can do it because there are weddings where the person might want drone, but their schedule doesn't allow for it. And B, you can focus on your couples and your clients more and being creative in other ways. The reason you wouldn't want it is, first of all, if it's just essential to your creative vision that something looks exactly a certain way. and you don't think you can get it from someone else, you can't train it. Maybe you're doing destination work and you can't afford to just bring someone. So if you have someone doing it, you certainly can be more focused on the day of the wedding. If you don't, you have to be more strategic on when you get the footage. That's when the morning tips happen, or going a day early. Like when we do destination, we'll probably try to do our drones on a totally different day.
Right.
Unless the day comes, and this is a storytelling tip I'll tell you. If the wedding day happens and the weather is very different, I'll probably try to get a drone up there no matter what. Just so I don't know, maybe this is just a weird thing I have. Like, and the footage looks totally different from the actual wedding day. It just kind of throws me off.
No, totally. That's all good points. I think whenever the real reason you might want to hire another drone operator is to be filming at the right time of day, when there's good moments going on, to match the weather as well. And I agree with you. Like if you're shooting a multi-day wedding, we're just flying the drone all over the place. But where you really want to have someone else flying is when there's that bottleneck. Like typically when we just talked about it,
8 to 10 hour day, right?
8 to 10 hour day. I want my drone operator there 2 hours before the sun sets. So generally, what am I doing 2 hours before sunsets? It's usually maybe ceremony, cocktail hour, portrait session. I don't want to have to decide between getting an awesome drone shot and getting an awesome portrait shot, the bride and groom. I want both. I want it all, man.
But I will say, we're probably going to pick that portrait time
over drone
every time.
Right. So since I want both, I'm going to hire someone else to be there on site that I don't even have to worry about it. And the thing I like about that is, like I said, they're on Drone Island. They're not captive to my wedding day schedule. They can drive down the street. They can get a lighthouse. They can go to the beach. They can get all these things. They can come back to the venue, get it during cocktail hour. They're much more flexible than I'll be. So ideally, you can get better drone footage when there's that crazy bottleneck. And that's the reason why we have someone else do it. And also, we're making the extra money. We may as well have another, I don't mind paying someone and still making profit to make my films better. And at the end of the day, too, and this is a point, like people might say to us, like, well, then you're allowing your client to choose essentially the quality of your wedding film. I still want to fly drone. I would say, dude, you still can. you can
just fly the drone and give it to them
for free. But believe it or not, you can give away a free service if you really want to do that. But what this allows you to do in this approach is it means if you're shooting at the freaking Holiday Inn, you're not obligated to fly drone for them.
Okay,
because then they'll be like, oh, you didn't fly drone of the Holiday Inn. You're like, well, I can just have an easy excuse. It's like, well, you didn't pay for it. Like if you include drone in most of your films and you're like, well, I decide day of if I'm gonna fly drone or not, they could be like, well, we really wanted you to do that, and you didn't. And they could be left disappointed.
This is a great point. People are like, oh, well, I don't want them determining my film.
Right.
Well, yeah, true. You don't want them forcing you to put drone in something that's ugly.
Yeah. So
we not often, but I've done it before when I've been talking to a couple where I'm like, so we don't want drone for this. So, because, it's just not going to be, is this important to you?
Right.
No, it's not important to me.
Yep.
I established that early on. So there's no expectation the drone footage is going to be there. They know why it's not there.
Yep.
We don't do it. And therefore, I know that would ruin the film.
Yeah. And honestly, they know too.
Yes.
Your clients know. We sold 30 drone weddings last year. They know, because they're gonna end up saying all the films that we're doing drone for are beautiful locations. No one wants to pay extra drone to get the Holiday Inn. It's mountains. It's these beautiful locations. They think, oh, since we're getting married in a beautiful space, I can't imagine us not including drone.
Yeah, the beach or some amazing place.
And what happens a lot for us too, we'll send an email a couple months before the wedding season and mid-wedding season saying hey guys, we're just circling back. Notice you don't have drone for the wedding. You're in this great location. Would you want to add it? A lot of times people are probably at the end of their budget, but also they're getting phone calls from people like, oh, I know we RSVP'd. We actually can't make it now. So now they have maybe an extra $500 to spend on me to fly drone. So it's like an opportunity where you can sneak in there at the end and just make an extra $500 because your drone operator's like, hey, chomping at the bit, man. I want the work.
I think the biggest thing with this whole sales thing is people will pay extra for it.
Yeah.
So like you shouldn't feel bad about like, getting that bag whenever you can, like I said. And if you're wondering if they will pay for it, I would just say try it.
Yeah.
Try making it an a la carte. Try talking to them about it and see how people react.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't all buy it, but they're definitely not going to be like, how dare you try to sell that?
And let me dive into my sales tactic, because I talk to people about it all the time. Is I always tell people, which is true, I'm like, hey, we used to include a drone in all of our packages because drones are freaking awesome. Like we would want to fly a drone as much as possible. Then the dirty government, my libertarian views might come out a little bit in this conversation, but I'm like, the dirty government makes us have to have an FAA licensed drone pilot on site. So it allows me to blame the government, which I like. A lot of people can understand that and hate that. And I can just be like, yeah, now we have to have a person on site covering, which of course means it could be me as the lead videographer on site that's licensed. But I just say we have to have a drone pilot. That kind of takes some pressure off of me, why I'm charging extra for it. It's like, yeah, we have a licensed person show up. And then, it's not all bad because it does allow them to be on their own.
It also lets
and
you
get
tell
the
them
best
about,
coverage.
talk about FAA.
Right.
Those kind of regulations. Like I can't fly everywhere in Boston.
Right.
Like you should have those conversations with people.
Yep.
But anyway.
Yep. It opens up the whole conversation of like, maybe we can't even do this. Let me check in the map and just make sure. So it kind of runs you through a lot of those things.
If you're not talking to people about the legal side of drone,
right,
you need to. But
that first consultation, I would say, if they're leaning towards drone, I always run them through all that. Because if you're if you're someone who's including drone, they might just assume like, okay, you're in the downtown, area, you're gonna fly drone of these buildings, which is complicated, by the way. I hate flying in cities. It's not my favorite.
I mean, I think I never have.
I hate it.
I've flown on the outsides of the cities, which I'm fine with, but I don't think you're even really allowed most parts of the city.
Well, back in the day, there used to be the most interference on the Phantom 4 and like some of those early drones. You would get the most interference in cities. So we had Matt one time. Well, I shouldn't have said his name, but Matt Clemens, our friend.
Matt, a person named Matt.
A person named Matt was flying in downtown Boston and was flying around buildings, like perfectly legal. But it just disconnected and it shot straight up as high as it could possibly go. And he couldn't get it down. He was having to move around the downtown area and like eventually got connection to be able to bring it back down. But like it was running low on battery. Like it was like a horror movie.
And it was just going to land on top of a building.
It was just going to land on top of a building or some old lady. Like, so it's kind of scary. But anyways, they can assume that you're going to be filming downtown and you might not be able to. So when you can't, they're like, oh, well, that was the only reason we hired you because we thought we were getting free drone out of you.
Oh, I saw this one footage from this guy's film, and he flew through the buildings. Why didn't you? It's
right.
I'm not going to break the law.
Yeah. So it allows you to be like, if I have a person, then you can make requests about like, oh, well, we want to do this with the drone. I can be like, great, let's get the drone operator in this conversation, and we can make sure that we're getting that lighthouse and a very specific thing. Because I'm with you. Like, we're not going to the lighthouse. Like, how am I supposed to do it when I'm with you?
When would you like me to do this?
So it just kind of clears up a lot of the air. Again, I think, and maybe I hop into just, what happens if people end up canceling drone due to weather. I have a couple different options there. Just in general, if someone cancels drone beforehand, totally fine. I have it worked out with my drone operators. Like, hey, if they're worried about weather, they can cancel at any point, and we're canceled at any point. That's the arrangement with my drone operators. I give them enough work that they give me that flexibility. So that's great. If we decide, hey, let's move forward and see what happens. A lot of times in New England, we have these days that are just like these misty days, like Seattle weather. And it's kind of like a coin flip of if it's going to be heavy enough rain for us to fly or not. I usually say, like, if it's my drone, I don't care. Like, I'll take a risk. If it's a drone operator's drone, I'm probably less likely to take a risk there because that's their equipment, and I don't want them to have to risk their equipment for it. But if they have the drone operator show up on site and test out the weather, and they're like there for 2 hours, and they're like in between raindrops, they can send it up for a couple shots. I'm still going to charge them the full amount. If they send it up for 15 minutes, half an hour, I'm still going to charge them the full amount. We got some good drone shots. If they show up and they can't shoot, I charge them 50% for them showing up. That way I can pay the drone operator for showing up, and then I'm just not making a profit.
The other thing that we do sometimes is we say, we just go back another day.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like I can say like, hey, I'll just show up the next day. It looks like it's going to be kind of similar weather or cloudy. It's not going to rain tomorrow. Would you want to do that? But having those conversations beforehand is
the other
critical.
thing that I would say, pro tip, catalog your drone footage and then just use it from another wedding.
Well, that's another point that I was going to bring up too is like the business side of having drone is like we have this full catalog. It's not super organized, but Caleb and I are currently working on our drone catalog, and we can use this for a bunch of different reasons. One is I can sell drone because I sell drone already, a separate drone operator. A lot of people are like, oh, it's just out of our budget. Like we charge $500 for drone. And so a lot of people will be like, oh, that's just too steep for us. Okay, totally fine. What if we have drone footage from this part of the year? Would you want us to include, drone coverage from last year that we got at your venue? We can see about weather, etc. And if they're like, yeah, totally, great, we'll just charge you $250 for that. So we're still making a profit because we're doing the work to catalog it and be able to offer that and be organized enough to do that. They might be like, that's totally possible. That's better. That's totally fine with us. Great. A lot of times people are really excited about that. I found out. So, and then the other part of this too is you can always sell it to stock footage. There's right. You can sell it to, Film Supply. Potentially, if you have a good relationship with them or whatever stock footage site. So making money off of your drone footage, I think is a big deal. I haven't
by
worked
no
out.
means we're experts at, by the way.
Not yet.
In terms of
but that's where we're moving.
Yeah.
Like I want to make money on that drone footage, just wherever I can, however I can. I think a lot of people don't understand the value of that kind of coverage. The city of Providence could, buy our stock footage that I just shot of the downtown of Providence. Like it was
I was going to say
amazing.
One thing to just throw in there.
Yeah.
If you're working with contractors, make sure that the work for hire agreement expresses that you own the footage.
Yep.
And not the shooter, which is okay if you want to do it the opposite way.
Yep.
But if you're intending on selling it afterwards, make sure you actually own it.
Right. And that's what we're doing. But then I don't mind if our contractors use it for their portfolio.
No, I wouldn't mind.
I give a license to them like, hey, we can use this footage for whatever we want.
We own it.
We own it. But then also you can use it for your portfolio too. Like I don't mind that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a problem with
at
that
least
either.
with drone operators, it's not really the same for our contractors.
Yeah, I would feel different too if there was
shooting.
like couples all that throughout it and footage like that. But
Yep.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about real quick, and we've talked about it a lot, but just editing a little bit,
Sure.
including the footage. I was going to bring up one thing, which is the opening drone shot. What's your feelings on the amount of films that open up with the opening drone shot? Is that a bad thing, good thing, fine thing? Like, what's your thoughts?
Honestly, if you were to ask me that question.
I did.
As this is me stalling a little bit. No, I think you're asking me that question now. Immediately, I'm thinking it's overplayed, but also we do it all the time. So,
that's the whole thing.
Right.
Like, is it overplayed? The answer can be yes. Is that bad or good? It can be ambiguous because it's like, if it's a good shot,
and I think
and the couple loves it.
I oftentimes don't want to start our film on people. I want to start it on setting people up and using just beautiful shots. A big thing that we're trying to do in all of our films is like, and we're telling Caleb and Kyle, and something that we're really working on is like the first 5 shots of any film have to be freaking awesome. They have to be some of our best work in the entire film because we have to draw people in. And then we're showing the people, because if you show people in your first 5 shots, like no one cares about these people. No one knows these people. The strangers watching this film, at least no one knows these people. So I want to show beauty shot, beauty shot, beauty shot, cool shot, interesting shot. And then here are the people in this interesting world that I've created. So a drone shot oftentimes falls in those first 5 shots.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the drone shot. It's oftentimes the bad drone shot.
Yeah.
Or meh,
Yeah.
But
you're vanilla.
Yeah, like, and then even that's okay. And so the first thing is, first of all, you're running a business to make money and make your clients happy. So for all the filmmakers who are like, man, drones at the beginning, oftentimes I'm like, hey, look, like you have sour grapes about this stuff. So
Is
fine.
Bobby an anti-drone person, or is he an anti?
I don't think so, but
Yeah.
I also think he's not like crazy about drone.
Right.
But we
right.
do often, like, I've heard Matt talk about it too, Matt Johnson. And
Yeah.
like, if you watch a lot of wedding films, you can see the template.
Yeah.
Anytime you see a template in wedding films or in any kind of art, the immediate reaction is to be negative as artists. But the actual way we should be evaluating it is people must really like that.
Yeah.
Why do they like that?
Right.
And okay, it's an opportunity to maybe be different or
Right.
break away, and that's good. But it's also an opportunity to not have to think
Right.
and just do something that you know will delight people. And so I have mixed feelings on it because, I think it should be good, and I can acknowledge that I'm a little meh about it in terms of how we utilize the footage in our edit.
Yes.
But I also think it can be effective. So that's the first thing. The other thing with editing is people oftentimes, they don't shoot enough drone footage, and they don't shoot enough like unique drone footage or like changing perspective. You can tell they just took one pass, turned around, and then they got down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you didn't like give me like a lay flat or any foreground. Like it's not enough variety.
Again, guys, this comes down to if you're shooting your drone footage yourself, you only have a 5-minute window to send it up. You're going to get your fundamental basic shot, send it back down. When you have someone else filming, I'm just saying, they can do a lot more. They're there for 2 hours just flying the freaking drone.
Well, think about like a great destination filmmaker who's going 2 days before the event. I feel like I can remember watching Alex's the JJ Watt wedding, Bahamas one, and there's a lot of drone footage in it. Not in a bad way, but I mean, like, I felt like I was being toured around the island. Like, I felt like a great sense of Bahamas. And I could tell he shot a lot. He spent a lot of time going around, and he shot a lot of different perspectives. And the tip I always see with these really good filmmakers / drone people who know how to edit is they're almost blurring the lines sometimes between drone and gimbal. Like they're flying 30 feet up.
Yeah.
Instead of go up as high as possible, fly.
Yeah.
They're kind of like going down a road or like doing things with the drone footage that in the edit that's like you're questioning. What am I looking at here? Is this a drone? Or are they on the back of a car? Like I love that.
Yeah.
When I'm not even thinking about the drone, I'm just looking at the shot. But I do think like a lot of edits, the way they utilize drone is just like, well, this is good on its own, and that's it. They don't do anything with it. They would never composite it. It's nothing interesting. Like you said, it's not composed.
Yep.
And then the first beginning shot is just like, we talked about that, but
Yeah.
I think
one of my favorite uses of like aerials in establishing a really good setting is, do you remember that helicopter shot in The Shining? How it opens up in the mountains of Colorado, right? It's like,
which is not a thing you would like traditionally think of, like, oh yeah, when they're driving.
Yeah, up the
Like-
mountain, but it's like you have this incredible sense of like space between people. And that was like, you feel that way the whole film, and they're setting that up. He sets it up from the very beginning. Like
Kubrick, you mean?
Kubrick, I'm sorry, yeah. He sets it up from the very beginning. Like, we are in a place where there's not a lot of people, and you feel this sense of isolation the entire time when you're actually in the building, in the hotel the entire time. So
It's when you watch drone / aerial footage in films.
yeah,
You never acknowledge it as such in your brain, and that is great filmmaking. Is like the camera disappears, and the message you're trying to communicate is what people get immediately. Like they don't watch and go, "Wow, how did they get so high?" They go, "Wow, there's no one near them. They're driving up that mountain by themselves."
Yeah.
Like the message is just clearly communicated, which is hard to do with weddings.
Yeah.
But I do think
It is.
when you're editing, looking for those opportunities to communicate something
yep.
through the edit, even where you put it in the film.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, a lot of times a good drone shot versus a bad shot is just, what is the subject? And you're not in control of that. So it's like one of my favorite drone shots I saw this year was Peyton Frank in France shooting this palace. It's like a glass palace. It's crazy looking. And you wouldn't be able to get that perspective any other way but a drone shot. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's freaking beautiful. I want to be there. That's an interesting perspective. But that's good. Just the content itself, the subject itself is good. You know, again, you don't want to show the parking lot. You don't want to show the Holiday Inn. Like,
so why don't we end on this then, unless
Yeah.
you have something you want to end on? Because how does someone know the difference between a good subject and a bad subject? In general, but I think how do we apply that to drone, of course?
well, you only want to be hired by multimillionaires, first of all.
Beautiful models.
And beautiful models. Cut show.
All you got to do is see how many likes they have. That's how you know it's a good subject.
You know, I think when you start working up the ladder and start doing higher end weddings, obviously your subjects are naturally going to become more interesting because people have more money. They can throw money at their tastes better. You're not just filming, you know, mason jars in a barn, which are the worst to look at and we all hate.
I love them.
Oh, good.
If you ever say that again.
But I think a part of grinding it out as a wedding filmmaker is finding the gold. You have to dig a lot harder.
Elevate.
But yeah, you work harder. Like if you are starting off, guys, you're going to have to work your ass off to become a good filmmaker and to get those better opportunities. But the more you work at it, the more you grind it out, the more you're finding those opportunities, the better your films are going to be, the more you can charge, the more you can get into this upper echelon where your subject is just better. But you have to have the basic fundamentals of like shooting a good wedding film, finding the good subjects. I'd say, again, I say it all the time, like becoming an interesting person is part of knowing and curating what good content is and what good subject matter is. So I think that's a big part of it, is just become a better artist.
I would say, like you mentioned, just knowing if something is interesting. One quick way to ask yourself is, what if someone didn't know anything about this couple or this day, what would they get out of that shot?
Right.
Would they think that this is like that dumb retention pond?
Yeah.
I asked them, is this person's house?
Right.
Where do they live here? Like,
Right.
no, they don't. Is this
Right.
where the venue is? No, it isn't.
What does it communicate?
What is this saying in the film? And if you honestly cannot tell me, and it doesn't look amazing, it's not a good subject.
Yeah.
Right? It's that simple. It's like, why am I shooting like a 10 foot off the air shot of the outside of a golf course?
Yeah. I always used to make fun of one of our lead shooters, Dom, who I love.
He's a good shooter too.
Great shooter, great cinematographer. But when he first started, he would always shoot American flags.
Or any flag.
Any flag, because they're moving, they're interesting. They're kind of like, I'm with him. I like shooting flags too, because I think they're interesting. But but at the end of the day, what does that communicate? It's like, man, this couple is really patriotic. This couple loves America, and it's like, that's not what we're trying to communicate in our wedding film.
Like,
do they? Maybe they hate America. I don't know, but we're shooting this American flag outside this venue. And so, yeah, it's just like I would always make fun of them, and we'd always bring it back, and we rag on them still. Like, oh man, look at that flag over there. Dom would shoot that flag. Like, it's a inside joke.
We still actually just anytime we see a flag, we'll just like text him.
Yeah.
What do you think about this shot?
What do you think of this shot? Yeah. Which I think is great. But thinking it through, just being conscious, being present, it's good filmmaking. Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it all comes down to. So, if you want to buy a drone, I'm sure we have one in our affiliate links. So head down there, help us out.
This isn't an episode on which drone you should buy. Sorry if you listened to the solo episode, you thought we were going to end with that.
Buy any new drone. The end.
Yeah, they're all great. We have 3. We have the Phantom 4, which never really gets pulled out, but the Mavic 2 Pro.
We're so bad at selling our
2S,
stuff.
The 2S as well is the Air 2S. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Which is a great little drone. I love that
Spark
drone
is fun too.
Spark, there's a lot of fun drones out there, but But anyways, guys, hopefully this has been helpful and just kind of helps you think about your drone coverage in general. I'm surprised we were able to cover a full episode about drone, Jay. That was good.
I mean, especially when I would not consider myself like a drone enthusiast or a drone expert.
Yeah.
You know, like
this is more perspective of being a business owner, how you can use drone as a weapon, as a tool
whether
in your
it be
toolbox.
how you brand yourself,
Right.
or just delighting your clients.
Yep.
Like is really what it comes down to, and it's a great way to make people happy, and you should be utilizing it, and you should be making extra cash from it.
Yep. Guys, if you are looking to connect with the Wedding Film School family, there's a couple ways you can do that. First way is on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. Make sure you join that. That's a great way to just ask questions of, I think 16,000 people are in that Facebook group. So there's a lot of good discussions every single day in there. If you're struggling
It's
with
perfect
something,
for people who want to post in wedding film school, how to film weddings, and wedding videographers.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
interested in making a post in all three groups,
make sure the triple post is what you're doing to
Yes.
get the most views. But there, and then of course, guys, on YouTube, that's where you can find us Monday through Sunday, 24/7. If you're looking to get some helpful tips, we do a lot of behind the scenes films. We have 2 of those that are already shot, that are on the queue, that are coming out very shortly. So make sure you stay tuned, guys. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you next time right here on the Wedding Film School Show.